All right, welcome out, everybody. This is Black Power Media, and this is the Black Power Media special right here for you and yours. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. Let me introduce you to your host today. We got no other than Kalanchi, Jama, Changa, Jackie Lukman, and our special guest, Dr. Cornel West.
What's happening? How y'all doing, good people? How's everybody doing?
All right.
It's a blessing to be here once again. I can tell you that.
Always a pleasure. So we have a couple more hosts. They running late. I guess their flight, is coming in. It'll be landing. My purpose today was going to be to serve as the moderator, but I may have double duty today, so it's all good. We want to welcome you back. For folks who are new to the platform, this is Black Power Media. This is a special edition, and this is Dr. Cornel West, I believe, fourth time in a row coming on deck.
Lord, I've lost count, but I'm just so glad to be here and plan to come back. Keep coming back.
Let's go. We happy to have you here. We have my cohorts, my partner in crime in the building, got fresh new bun because she knew Dr. West was going to be here. She might be getting Dr. West change his last name. We don't know. Stick around. We'll see. We got my sister Jackie Lukman in the building. What's going on, Jackie?
I appointed myself appropriately for the occasion.
I'm a pause on that. I don't know what that means. But anyway, above my pay grade. But anyway,
freedom fighter, Jackie, sister, freedom fighter, intellectual.
Oh goodness. Thank you. Jackie. That's a high compliment coming from you. Thank you.
I'm just telling the truth.
Hey man, Jackie harder than the times. We know how that goes. So Dr. West, we welcome you back. The last couple times, you were gracious to receive our questions and respond accordingly. We know you've done like 8 million interviews since then. We see you everywhere. You like Sidewalk Fair. Dr. Cornel West is everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to start off with some questions. Of course, in the tradition, we want to bring on ask our sister Jackie to get started with the first question while we wait for the other guests, and we're going to have a good time today.
Thank you so much. So I guess, my focus is always, I don't know why I'm always laser focused on foreign policy, probably because in this country, most of us are not. And, the little bit of traveling I've done, I've been to Cuba, been to Venezuela, talked to some folks, and it just struck me how much more attuned to the involvement of the U.S. in their affairs and in their miseries than we even understand that this government is involved. And I meet people from the diaspora here, particularly in Washington, D.C., big old cultural melting pot of folks. So it's always interesting to hear these perspectives. And in talking to people about the situation in Haiti, first of all, people don't pay enough attention to Haiti, and that makes me angry because Haiti is the example, the vanguard for freedom fighting. That's just that's just the truth. But there has been a situation in Haiti where we hear these narratives about out of control, rampant criminal gangs, and that is the basis for what the US government and even now CARICOM nations are calling for a US led military intervention in Haiti to combat these criminal gangs. That there's some messy politics and U.S. imperialism involved in this whole criminal gangs business.
Yeah.
But I do wonder what your position is on um, a military intervention in Haiti, um, and the question of Haitian sovereignty and African solidarity with Haitian sovereignty, just kind of in general, from a policy standpoint, if you were to win the White House in November.
No, indeed. First, let me say it's a blessing to be in conversation with you again. The last time you were pushing me in such a beautiful way and making me rethink, re-examine, and re-scrutinize where I stood. I noticed that even on television, I was responding to you in terms of how I formulated right on the spot. I say that's a
Blushing
beautiful
now. Okay.
thing. And I do want to note that I think one of the distinctive features of a mature Black freedom movement is internationalism. When you look at Garvey and Amy, Marcus and Amy Garvey, when you look at King's World House, when you look at Malcolm viewing us as part of the majority in the world rather than a minority within the U.S. empire. CLR James, Black Jacobins, Trinidad connecting with Haiti in New York, Claudia Jones, London, New York, we can go on and on and on. And we're losing that internationalism in the present moment. And so I want to affirm what you were saying and what Black Power Media represents, Black Agenda Report. Glenn Ford would always make the same points. And it's difficult not to be Americentric because the American empire is a huge empire. That's over 330 million people with all these different states and regions, and just moving from Chicago to Detroit. It's like a major move. We ain't even got to Mississippi yet, you see, so that it takes a lot of vision, analysis, and disposition to always connect the domestic with the international. And so I do very, very much want to affirm that. And I want to always make that part and parcel of what my campaign is about, because again, it's just this moment in a movement, but it's an international movement. And it's different in globalization. That's not the language of tradition that I come a part of. Not even cosmopolitan. I tell my brother Appia, who's written books on cosmopolitan. No, internationalism is rooted in the struggles of oppressed peoples. Cosmopolitanism was a different kind of discourse, primarily among professional elites. And globalism is basically just an outright corporate construct to try to look for cheap markets in order to exploit folk, in order to make big profits and end up pushing the whole planet to the edge of the cliff, as it were. Now, Haiti is a centering moment politically because of the great revolutions there, culturally because of the new connection with New Orleans and jazz. There is no jazz without the Haitians coming in. And jazz, of course, is the great breakthrough of the most barbaric century of recorded time. It's the greatest artistic breakthrough tied to the blues coming out of Delta, Mississippi, tied to the blues coming out of northern Texas and Georgia. But when they meet in New Orleans, you got the Haitians there, and you got the Creoles, and you got the French, and you got gut bucket ex-Negroes like me, which is to say the ones that come out of Georgia, Mississippi, Texas. I'm coming out of Louisiana. But that rich hybridity generated this. So that when you talk about Haiti, we should always connect the spiritual and the social, the personal and the political, the economic and the existential. And there's no accident that the sustained targeting of Haiti beginning with the reparations to France, has been constant and consistent from the power struggles in the transatlantic society. Now that we're witnessing the decentering of the American empire, which is simply a way of saying internal decay inside and external decline outside, that Haiti will become once again, I think, even more inescapable, indispensable, and a fundamental vantage point from which for us to try to understand these different dimensions of the Black freedom struggle. So my position is we must never allow for military occupation of Haiti. Never. It can be imperial US, it could be UN and what have you. But we do have to have very strong connections of solidarity to the freedom forces inside of Haiti. I'm very much one who wants to support those both folk, especially in civil society, because the Haitian state has been colonized for so long by a very, very cold and cruel Haitian bourgeoisie that has not been able to speak to the needs of those Sly Stone called everyday people in Haiti. We have to have connections with Haitian civil society of those institutions, structures, infrastructures, figures, leaders that are trying to bring some just order, because there is too much disorder in Haiti, no doubt about that. People are suffering, no doubt about that. That's been the case ever since they pushed back and overturned the revolution, and it intensifies. Sometimes it's even with the hurricanes and the tornadoes and things. But at the level of social misery, see, that is human made. That is made by the history of the treatment of Haiti by elites in the United States and Europe that try to convince precious Haitians that they should never forget that their revolution that overthrew the forces of Napoleon. I mean, we're not talking about the Ethiopians pushing back the Italians in 1896. Italians got an empire about as big as my band, you know what I mean? And most of my band don't show up on time, Italians got a little empire like this, Libya and little Eritrea and so forth. And I'm not putting Menelik down. Menelik is a towering figure. But 1896, he pushed back the Italian forces. But we're talking about the Haitians organizing, pushing back Napoleon. That's like almost pushing back Genghis Khan. Some of these, Alexander the Great, some of the major gangsters of empire building, you see. And that's something that I think the Western world, the European world, has never really gotten over. And that's one of the reasons why I think Haiti has been so targeted. There's been struggles in this country, of course, to try to ensure that there's some egalitarian entree of Haitian brothers and sisters who want to come to the American empire, vis-a-vis Cubans, vis-a-vis Ethiopians, vis-a-vis Mexicans and others. And of course, now, Harvard University has a Haitian president, that. So that our Haitian brothers and sisters, they make their moves in the highest echelons of the empire. They're great people, on a variety of different ways. But most importantly, the direct answer to your last question is that we cannot allow for that kind of occupation. I'm just talking to Brother Jamu, that we're coming up with a press release on this very, very, very soon. He's been pressing us on this.
Fantastic.
Very much so.
Definitely appreciate you responding to that question. I wanted to ask you along with that. There's a recent poll that stated that 45% of the Democratic Party would be welcoming to a third party, right? And I wanted to know, as far as you being Dr. Cornel West, we get the whole, you're president for everybody, so on and so forth. But specifically, a question I'm sure is not asked too often of you: what's in it for African people? home and abroad, internationally, cutting to the chase, what our audience here at Black Power Media, and other audiences, what do you say is in it for them? Because we know that there's been plenty. I'm in Atlanta, where, as the Ruber talks about, the slaves run the plantation, right? We know about high faces in black places in high faces. Excuse me, black faces in high places. So we're not excited about who will lead the empire. At the end of the day, jumping right on it. What is it that you say coming from your mouth, without rhyme or reason? What's in it for us as a lover of black people?
Yeah, no, I hear you, my brother. And I want to salute you too, though, brother. I'm telling you, man, you hold down court in a magnificent way, though, brother. It reminds me a little bit of Count Basie. Count Basie always had a smile. He was real kind of quiet, that quiet dignity, like Brother Kalandra. You know what? All that deep waters run so deep. Still waters run deep, the old folk used to say. You got that quiet dignity, but the fire is just intense. And you see that at Count Basie out of Calvary Baptist Church, born in Red Bank, New Jersey. And I just did a tribute to him just a couple of weeks ago. And one of his daughters and the Sunday school teacher came up and said, "I'm glad you pointed out that Mr. Basie came out of Calvary Baptist Church, because everybody sees him as just a jazz musician, and he was playing piano for our choir when he was 5 years old." I said, yeah, I just want to be true to the origins and the beginnings of these towering figures. So you remind me in so many ways, in the political form of a count, and count is about as deep as they get. But the question becomes, one, what happens when you not just dismantle the empire, but unleash democratic programs such that you decommodify healthcare? That's going to help black folk. Medicare for all is going to help black folk. When you decommodify housing, that's going to help black folk. I'm here in Los Angeles, right? We got 40,000 homeless. 9% of the population of LA is black. 42% of the homeless are black. When you hit mass incarceration, we know the disproportionate numbers that we want to get into, the percentages and so forth, you see. When you hit quality education and free tuition, that's going to be positive for black people, because our young people often are hungry and thirsty for education, to be able to go to college, but they're unable to gain access to it. Now, that's just within the realm of citizenship. Beyond citizenship, then, is the issue of truth and justice as it connects to reparations. And to be able to try to use a bullet pulpit and push reparations in a serious and substantive way, so that people could really begin to understand just how fundamental barbaric white supremacist slavery was as the basis of American democracy. How is it that the U.S. Constitution was pro-slavery in practice? How is it that that Constitution was pro-neo-slavery in practice after slavery was abolished? I'm talking about Jim and Jane Crow, 1877 up until 1965, you see. Part of that is not just education, but it's a pushing the discourse in the country about the truth of the country. And these truths are profoundly painful. It upsets people. When you can see in Florida, you can't even raise a little basic issue of the level of black subjugation and so forth. They still got to tease out benefits and so on. No, but we're talking about something much deeper than this. We're talking about public policy that's based on acknowledgement of the economic basis of the democracy, which was precisely what slavery was, in terms of the tobacco, the rice, the cotton, and the skills, of course, that Africans brought with them on those barbaric slave ships. So that beginnings of an answer to your question, my brother, is that as one who is just a small wave in this larger ocean of the Black freedom movement, that uh, the issue that I've just talked about, I think, will definitely enhance the quality of life for New World Africans, for Black folk in the United States, and be connected always to oppressed people around the world, Black people around the world. When you demilitarize your foreign policy, the withdrawal of 800, the troops of 800 military units, disbanding the various alliances, non-defensive alliances, beginning with NATO, that cannot, I think, but have some positive effects for how Africans around the world, the global South, begin to view and perceive their relation to what used to be an American empire obsessed with total domination of every corner of the globe, as opposed to a nation among the community of nations that's not looking to subjugate other nations with their corporate interests and so forth. Now, all this, has to do with my vision. All this has to do with if I were able to have a public presence such that all of the voices of the Black freedom movement that I hope speaks through me would be able to generate policy that have tremendous impact on not just the material conditions, as crucial as they are, the abolition of poverty and homelessness, which sits at the center of so much of my domestic policy, but also psychically, though, brother, also spiritually, man. The transformation of Black culture and Black music from exotic entertainment to constitutive elements of what it means to be a free human being. That's part and parcel of what any serious politics ought to be about. We don't have politics without culture. You don't have politics without spirit. You don't have politics without communities and so forth. And those connections just haven't been made in the way that they ought, it seems to me. But that's, again, a beginning of an answer to your wonderful question.
I know, appreciate that. Jackie, you have something you wanted to
Yeah. So I'm hearing demilitarization primarily, which is both a foreign policy position, but it's also a domestic position.
Absolutely.
Because we have there is no militarization of domestic police without rampant militarization abroad, and that's U.S. imperialism. So you can't talk about ending U.S. imperialism, which is ending international U.S. militarism, without talking about ending domestic militarism. So we're talking about ending the U.S. empire,
Yes.
the actionable ways that the U.S. Um, uh, extends its power upon other people internationally and domestically, keeping the colonies, those of us who live in the domestic colonies, in check, so to speak. So I heard that, and I think I heard what sounded like toward like the beginning of your response, was sounded kind of like a truth and reconciliation kind of discussion. I won't say commission, but some kind of way to, I don't know how to frame it, because I don't feel like it's a reconciliation of this history that people in this country claim they are unaware of, or claim is not important in the struggles that we are enduring today. But I think I heard that some type of
Yes.
truth and reconciliation discussion, or whatever. And I think those are good things. And I'm looking in the chat, and I said last time that I would try to make sure that I ask you what people are asking in the chat.
Sure.
But I find this to be a really interesting kind of situation, because very often, Dr. West, organizers who are always like busy doing a whole bunch of stuff, sometimes, okay, I'm not going to say organizers, I'm going to just tell the truth. Sometimes I,
Yeah.
Jacqueline Guzman,
All
am
right.
real impatient with people who I know are not organizing. They're not in any organizing organizations. They're not politically involved in anything. They're not doing anything in their communities, but they got all the smoke for the people who are trying to do something. So, to be fair, I'm going to ask this question that is like an amalgamation of 3 or 4 questions that I've seen in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And this question is, how are you going to change any of this? Like, concretely, how are you going to change the minds of racist people outside of economics? And I'm just going to throw in a caveat here. I don't think politics is about changing anybody's mind. I think politics is about addressing the material conditions that people live in. And those material conditions change depending on the people you're trying to address. So we're not always talking about the same material conditions or the same people when we're talking about politics. But I know that we're not talking about changing people's minds when we're talking about politics. But people want to know how are you going to do all this grand, lofty sounding stuff? And I think people are just asking for simple 1, 2, 3 concrete answers. I don't know if they're going to get that just because that's the nature of politics in this country. But I thought I would ask because people are putting that out there.
Yeah, no. And it's understandable because, I mean, what I'm talking about is Robin Kelly called freedom dreams. How do you keep alive the vision and structural analysis from the vantage point of the wretched of the earth alive in an American empire as it slouches toward neo-fascism and is already run by a neoliberalism with a vicious authoritarian public face to black folk? Last time we were together with Brother DeRuba, he called it democratic fascism because it's fascist in its attitude and policies toward black people, just like the slavery and Jim Crow. Right. But now what has happened, of course, is even within the white supremacist mainstream, you get major slices because the neo-fascism is becoming so intense with Trump and company. So that we have to first try to keep alive the best of our tradition by having the courage to raise our voices, to engage in forms of vision and analysis that people can see and hear. You see, now I would argue that there's always a pedagogical element of politics because that's what consciousness raising is. That's really what it is. That's what Ella Baker, I think, understood so well, right? How do you get strong people so you don't need to have strong leaders? Well, you get strong people because the people have to undergo themselves transformation. And they undergo transformation with 2 sources, light and love. You got to be loved enough to have enough confidence in themselves to respect themselves, to think for themselves. Then the light is, oh, that's what the analysis look like. Oh, that's what's going on with militarism. Oh, that's what happened with the big business community. Is that why the black bourgeoisie in Atlanta came together around Cop City? Oh, we got a different analysis. Yes, Black Power Media got a different analysis than CNN, casting a different kind of light than CNN. You see what I mean? So in that sense, that consciousness raising always has that pedagogical dimension to it. And for me, we got to be very honest too about the fundamental feature of keeping oppressed people deferential is always fear. It's always fear, you see. When you niggerize a dignified African people with terror and trauma and force and fraud, you keep them scared, intimidated, and full of fear. And the only thing that breaks the back of fear is love and light. That's the only thing. Without that, if you unloved and you just gonna defer and just grab any sense of belonging to be because you're so hungry and thirsty for it. And if you're deeply loved, but you're still living in a kind of overwhelming ideological fog of what we used to call ignorance, then you still don't have an analysis of empire and capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy and so forth. But when you get that beautiful combination of love and light and break the back of fear, then you are free African. You a free black woman or black man, a free human being, which of course means what? Then you become a threat. I say at that point, things get real concrete, because the most dangerous movement in any white supremacist society is free black people organized. And even a free black woman on her own, with her own voice, can constitute a threat under certain circumstances, or a free black man with their own voice under certain circumstances can constitute a threat. You see, sometimes the threat is illusory. You know what I mean? That it's amazing for me in my campaign. I haven't had one fundraiser. I haven't had one public event. Y'all know my first one gonna be in Mississippi, right, with the precious Emmett Till family. Right? But I turn on the TV and people calling me a menace and a threat to this. Hey, wait. I'm just an extension of this movement. What kind of threat y'all talking about? What kind of menace are you talking about? Oh, I see. What they perceive is this black man ain't got no fear in terms of speaking what's on his mind and saying things that are cutting against the grain, saying things that may cast a light on their own corporate power, their own blindness, their own greed, their own avarice, their own indifference toward the suffering of folk on the other side of town, the chocolate side of town, poor sides of town, you see. That's the only thing you can come up with, because how in the world can this perception be of being such a threat to the corporate duopoly, or whatever language you want to use, you see? So that in that way, now, would you accept that, Sister Jackie, in terms of having that pedagogical dimension of politics where you have to engage in consciousness raising in your own organizing work?
I see. Why'd you ask me that question? I will accept that, because I understand a couple of things, and I don't say that to put myself like above anybody else's. I just say that because I think I understand your platform being founded on historical struggles of a long battle that we have been fighting. Yes. So your policy positions are not based out of some things that have just been happening in the recent.
That's true.
We're talking about the platform of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're talking about some aspects of the Black Panther Party for self-defense.
Absolutely.
We're talking about some aspects of other radical organizations who have put forth the things that need to be done to change the material conditions of the least of these in this country.
That's right.
For decades, longer before you came along and decided to run for president. So I accept that answer, because I understand your platform is not about, Cornel West is thinking up new ways to address these problems that, no, I like, seriously, if y'all, okay, let me stop. I'm trying to remember that I'm doing an interview now, but y'all, if we don't understand our history, I think that regardless of what we personally believe about the viability of you winning the White House, I think that if we understand our history, we would see this campaign as a very critical consciousness raising effort in order to bring to the forefront these discussions that we, Africans, Black radicals, and other working class and poor people organizing for the liberation of all our people have been having among ourselves for decades. Absolutely. But now here you are, you're able to take it to a wider audience. The same conversations we've been having. So no, I don't think you have any new ideas, but I don't think that's the point. I don't think the point is that you have any new ideas or easy answers. because we've fought these fights before, as Daruba bin Wahad has said over and over again. And I'm not sure why people don't quite get that, but so in short, do I accept your answer? Yes, I do. I'm not sure that that's going to be enough for people who still want the delineated, I'm going to do X and Y and Z to solve, that thing.
Right. No, I'm with you 120% in terms of it. You think, look at the freedom budget of 1966 of A. Philip Randolph and Martin Luther King Jr. was far beyond the Marshall Plan. Guaranteed income, abolishing poverty, making sure that no such thing as homelessness and houselessness. This is 66, 3 years after the March on Washington. Now, it's social democratic policy. It's not revolutionary, but it will enhance the material conditions of Black folk. Oh, no doubt about that. The same year, the Black Panther Party, 10-point program. And they got part of their 10-point program from who? Muhammad's speech, founded by Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam. The overlap with Huey and Bobby Seale in Oakland as part of the reading club there at City College. So that you're so right. I mean, anybody who has a love for Black people and has a courage to fight for Black people knows they're not the first one. And folk been thinking about this for a long time and really trying to catch up with them. And so again, it's a matter of allowing oneself to be a vessel and a vehicle and the conduit of the greatness of our people. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have our own voice. I mean, Count Basie knew that he wasn't no Fats Waller, you know what I mean? So that he had his own voice on the piano, but he didn't exist without those piano players before. And so it is in our movement. And so what I would also say to the brothers and sisters is, well, we're going to have different kinds of public service and safety so that they would not have to worry about the police in the way in which they do now, that they would be able to walk in communities in which there would be resources. There would be what I've talked about before, housing and schools and so forth. That's a qualitative shift. We could wipe out poverty with $190 billion. We spend $1 trillion in military, $1.5 trillion every year. Military budget's 898, but they have another 600 billion in Homeland Security and in other portions of the government and so forth. That's up, as we know, that's right now. They voting on that right now in Congress. Military budget, both parties support it. Now, Bernie Sanders just put out a thing. He's going to be against it. He wants 10% increase. That's beautiful. 10% is much too small, but that's beautiful. He's going to vote against it. But we want everyday Black folk on the ground in the hood and in our communities, working class and so forth, to know that there are ways in which all of this aspirational talk that comes from our tradition of the struggles of Black folk can become forces in their lives to change their material conditions if we had a strong enough movement, if we had strong enough voices, if we had a different kind of Black leadership than we have now among the mainstream neoliberal politicians.
So let me ask you, Dr. West, recognizing that we are under a capitalist system, we know capitalism is for all practical purposes, a pimp hole system, right? We know that, it is a corporate run situation, just like Cop City and pretty much everything you're talking about right now. How is it possible to navigate with these corporations still standing as it currently is? I mean, how do we navigate under a capitalist system when this system is absolutely, totally, 100% designed to crush African and other oppressed people? I respect your mission, and I think that that there's certainly some good intention, and I think that, as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intention. I'm not a naysayer. I'm an organizer, so we utilize whatever tools we could to win this war, right? But at the same time, understanding the playing ground. it's like we're in the ocean right now. So we just can't breathe like, like we're out on dry land. How do we deal with this? What type of equipment? How do we equip ourselves? And how can we come to a logical, realistic conclusion? And how do we survive America at the end of the day?
Mm, mm. Yeah, see, brother, that I mean, it's hard to have a definitive answer to that question because, again, we got to look at America through international lens. There's no way that we could break the back of a corporate capitalism all by ourselves. There's going to be a variety of different international forces that play a crucial role. So that on the one hand, in terms of a broader analysis, you got the challenge of the BRIC countries, of Brazil, Russia, India, and others. That's more and more putting pressure on the American empire to decenter it, to try to get some constraints of the greed of its corporate elites. We're on the inside. We're in the belly of the beast. We need to fight for the concessions. And there's always some concessions now. There's no doubt about that. But those concessions are still just crumbs compared to what's really on that table regarding the resources. Huge, huge, huge trillions of dollars of resources that we don't have access to. And we have to, and that's why if we had serious trade union movement, I was hoping actually for the strike at UPS so people could see which side people are on and begin to really analyze where all of that profit was going. Now they looks like a decent deal. We don't know. They haven't voted for it yet, but that's very important. And the workers' movement is very important. The problem has been that too often these trade unions are too racist and sexist. And so it doesn't translate in the Black community the way in which it ought. But it's a very important multiracial solidarity that can generate gaining access to concessions. Absolutely. But the definitive answer to your question, which is, well, how do we survive and thrive as the empire begins to implode and more deeply decay and crumble, and then remain tied to forces on the outside of the empire that are ascending, that are getting stronger and stronger as the American empire gets weaker and weaker? It's going to differ from region to region and context to context and even movement to movement and person to person. We all have a role to play, but no one organization, no one individual, no one institution, no one infrastructure, I don't think has a definitive answer to your deep question, no, brother. We really don't.
Unite with that. What we're going to do at this moment, Dr. West, we're going to do a switcheroonie. We can't have two J's on at the same time. So Sister Jackie Lukman is going to, she's going to skate, and we're going to bring on another J that I work with. Two of my favorite J's today. You know what I'm saying? So
Sister Jackie, stay strong. I forever salute you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you as always. Appreciate you, Kalanji. And I'm so sad I can't stay and talk to the fantastic Dr. Joy James too. But my regards to you, dear sister, and y'all in the chat. Peace. Thanks so much. We'll see y'all next time.
All right.
Good to see you, Jackie Lookman.
And Lord, Professor Freedom Fighter George.
Professor West, my advisor. It has been more than several decades. You look great. How are you?
Lord, just setting eyes on you brings joy to my soul. I remember you took us to that Fundy film of Ella Baker. You remember that? That film came out.
Because my thesis was on Ella Baker.
That's right. You took our whole class to that film.
I have no recollection.
Yeah, that film had come out just in 81. I didn't even know about it. I knew about Ella, but not the film. But I can see you right now at Union Theological Seminary, one of the most brilliant, visionary, courageous folk. And look at you now. Good God Almighty.
That is very kind.
What a calling, what a career, what a working witness you have, Sister Joy. Mm.
Thank you. Well,
Only
I
on
was.
BPM can you get a family reunion of Dr.
Oh,
Junior
okay.
Gordon,
Well,
Dr. Cornel West.
get to go. I have to say, I'm first. My apologies. A lot was going on, right? But also, I was with Creola, which is a Black feminist doctoral organization. They're actually an NGO, but they're more than that. So they're based in Rio, and so they had a number of doctoral students. And I told them I need to go. I'm going to talk to you first, but then I need to go. But it just went. It was very rich, and actually, I have um, some things I want to ask you, and also maybe weave it into the Creola because we
Absolutely.
ended up talking about fear. And I've been watching the different interviews you've been giving or sharing with people. I think it's Nick Estes, the Native American scholar.
Yes. Yeah.
That was
Red
so
media.
that
Red
was
media.
so deep, right? I was like, well, I'm gonna have to watch it over again. But there was a nuance there. I know you've been talking about foreign policy, domestic policy, but it really resonated with me when he was talking about 7 generations and you were saying from a Black cultural perspective, and you two kind of merged, right? Like you had a flow going. So with the Creola folks, we were talking a lot about fear, and I was talking, that you're campaigning. We talked, issues around feminism, the captive maternal, about
Yeah.
the violence that you regularly register when you say everybody should have a house. I'm not moving into the White House until we have house. Children should be fed. The wars need to stop. But I was wondering about the emotional register, and sorry if you've already tackled this before, but how do you see fear impeding our desire to even try to have an independent party, or understanding that to have a clear message of love and fierce resistance is a form of victory in itself?
Absolutely. Because the thing is that without breaking the back of fear, we have not satisfied what is a precondition and prerequisite for any kind of serious struggle. And fear is the major way in which oppressed people remain subjugated,
Mhm.
psychically, intellectually, socially, politically. Now we know repression is real. We got Brother Mumi's picture right there. That repression is as real as a heart attack, and therefore, for certain uh, slices of the movement, the assassination, incarceration, and so forth are very, very real and concrete realities. There's no doubt about that. But I don't believe that martyrdom should in any way be normative for the movement. You got to have a number of different things people can do without having to be incarcerated on the spot or be assassinated at the moment, you see. But you can only do that in collectivity. You can only do that in communities. But communities themselves have to have strong stories and narratives and rituals and ways of creating buffers against the raw power coming at them. And this is one of the reasons why we talk about the music all the time, or one of the reasons we talk about coming together, even the networks that you have with the womanist and feminist sisters in Brazil, all around the world. That gives you a sense of conviviality and community that allows you to continue in the face of what seems to be so overwhelming. The David versus Goliath like situation, or Davina versus Goliath, whoever it is. You see. And the only way that fear can be pushed back is through example. When we're talking about love and light, were the two ways of breaking the back. But love without example is empty. And life without concrete enactments of the theory become hollow after a while, or can become so narrowly academic. And I mean, my God, your magisterial corpus, I must note, Lord have mercy, has been one of the great counter-hegemonic, countervailing examples of how to be in the academy, but not of it. I'd be in Williams College, but at the same time, towering freedom fighter. You see, there's not too many intellectuals like that. Not too many intellectuals like you, Sister Joy. That's just a fact. But that becomes an example of how you deal with the fear in professional managerial sites.
Oh, wait. Okay. So I'm sorry, I might be hogging for the next couple minutes. So they showed on the screen the marches when Mariella Franco was assassinated, right? And at the bottom of the banner, they translated for me because I'm not always good with languages. But they said, when you killed her, we lost our fear. And then we were trying to, so you know how terrorized we are because you always register that. You like the suffering, you don't like the least of these and the captivity over centuries and the dishonor in terms of the anti-Black animus. But what would it mean for you that we could grapple with these traumas and these losses? And you know the whole roll call on the assassinations of our leadership, right? To
Right.
say we've lost our fear and not try to hide in these nonprofits or in these funding streams, because that's something we also talked about because there are doctoral students on the line. And it says, if you think your safety is if you can get the golden ring, and of course you've been like in the golden ring circle, right? With, you know, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, back
Absolutely.
to Union, you know, and I met you at Union, right? But this whole desire to be safe seems to mitigate against our need to make bold statements and pursue courses that maybe we're disillusioned with. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding too abstract, but it literally was on two and a half
No,
hours with these
no,
sisters.
this is not abstract at
And,
all.
you know, so when they said, because I was like, or I'm afraid often, they're like, yeah, well, you keep shooting us up, you know, under Bolsonaro and whoever. And also the environmental devastation, the murder of environmentalists in the Amazon, like the death is so present
Yeah.
that maybe the fear becomes, I asked, is it our companion in the war, in war resistance? Not like we're going to war, like Boots, you know, said in Guillotine, or the sisters singing, we were in a war before we fought one. I mean, you brought the war to us. But when we do war resistance, can we emotionally be stable with these levels of grief, and just to say, well, fear isn't going to be the register, or it's going to be a soldier on the battlefield. And I
Yeah.
like when you say love, you know, but you know, I have my good days when I'm like, yay, and other days I'm like, I don't want to hear it. But like just to be consistent, because
Absolutely.
I believe in agape, and I've had people make fun of me, you know, about that. But I learned some of that from you, and it's real. And I learned it in life experience. How do you see our love not disappearing the fear because it's going to stay, but enabling the fear to make us bold?
Mm, mm. Well, this is so rich. You know, I'm just so sorry. You know, I got this Zoom at 12 o'clock, and I've
Oh,
been
that's
going.
okay.
But
Yeah.
we go. Can we come back? Can we come back? And we go. But I want to say this. You remember Mary Ellen Pleasant, the great black sister who's the godmother of human rights in California, who gave John Brown almost $600,000 in cash when he was making his move against Harper's Ferry. He had the note in his pocket when he was executed from her. She used to often begin her talks always saying, I'd rather be a corpse than a coward.
Oh, okay.
I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. That's Sister Mary Ellen. Now, Martin used to say, I'd rather be dead than afraid. That was one of his favorite ones, you see. Now, again, you don't want martyrdom to be normative, but that's the kind of commitment. Now, when Baldwin says to be committed is to be in danger, so that danger, jeopardy, fear is a certain kind of companion, but is always subordinated to that which breaks the back of danger, jeopardy, and fear, which is love. Now, love itself is it's as funky as Bootsy Collins' guitar, right? Love is in the funk, in the mess, in the stink, in the stench, in the pain, in the hurt, in the trauma. Because it's traumatizing when you lose a loved one. I just lost my mama, right? I ain't never gonna be the same. You know what
I
I mean?
didn't
Yeah,
know.
that kind of love when you see her body in the coffin, right? But it's precisely because love is the most intense way of being alive that when you lose somebody or they get betrayed or whatever, the trauma goes hand in hand with the love. And this is again right back to our musicians. You know, we began talking about this. I'll erase away the pain of the whatnots. What you talking about? Whatnots out of DC? I'm traumatized. I'm in so much pain I can't move. But love has a way of doing that. This is in the interpersonal form. But our musicians have always been so open about catastrophe, open about trauma, open about tear in relationships, of the heart, of the soul. And when they had the courage, like Nina Simone and this brother Coltrane in Alabama, they talk about it structurally. But they always are honest in telling the truth. We just need to be truth tellers all the way down. And you can't tell the truth all the way down unless the love is deep, unless the confrontation of fear is real, and the overcoming and working through fear is real. And this is, for example, with Emmett Till's mama. We're going to be talking about that in Alabama. Right? She stands right there in the church, Robert Temple, Church of God in Christ in Chicago. What did she say, looking at her baby? His head 3 times the size of his ordinary head. I don't have a minute to hate. I will pursue justice for the rest of my life. Tears flowing, traumatized, still dealing with a psychic tear from these cowardly white supremacist terrorists who had murdered her son. And what did she do? She did exactly what you, exactly what Kalandra been doing. Walking with style and dignity, with a smile in the midst of all of this grimness, saying, we will not be rendered fearful, paralyzed. See what I mean? But that's just the beginning. I'm so sorry I got to run because I got
it's
this
good
other
to
thing,
see you.
But I'm giving you a
game.
hug, Sister Joy. And Brother Kalandra, you know I'm always so inspired by you. But we'll be in contact. I'll come right on back.
We
Okay.
appreciate you, brother.
And we're here to support you, so stay well.
Definitely you all take good care now.
Okay.
Right on.
Yes, sir. And checking out Dr. Cornel West. This is Black Power Media. How you doing, Dr. James? Good to see you.
I'm okay. And yeah, sorry for the delay, but I didn't want to abandon the sisters. So
it's all good. It's all good. We held it down. We had Sister Jackie riding shotgun. So that. So we always willing and able to rumble. What else is coming up? Anything good coming your way before we close out?
No, I think we're moving towards an addition to the family.
Yes.
And I believe the tentative title is Ungendered. It's paren UN close paren gendered, queered ED Black Power. Just looking to talk more with our family members and our movements. I was in a conversation with Black Canadians yesterday. And there's struggle. The struggles are intertwined across all borders. So as much as we can be in discussion and debate and to strategize collectively, the more we could grapple with all emotional registers and move forward towards peace and freedom on our terms.
No doubt. So that's a new show coming up. Who are some of the hosts on that show?
Yeah, I believe Deshaun Harrison, who is editor at large with Scalawag and a brilliant theorist, has this brilliant book and also did the foreword to In Pursuit of Revolutionary Love. Jasmine Seydullah, who is a prof at Vassar, African-American sister who's done a lot of work on Black Buddhism and also her forms of radical abolition, focusing on Sojourner Truth and going actually back to the South to just be in the spaces that truth was in, right? And to see how contemporary abolition, the way we talk about it, and often with limitations in the academy, can sort of break out of those cages or confinement or gentrifying thought and connect with our ancestors, but also with the contemporary in terms of struggles. So I don't know if that sounded too abstract, but those two folks and others, there's a number of folks who've expressed interest in various countries to be in conversation. And I see this as an extension of our Guerrilla Intellectual University, that it has the capacity to open the doors in the classrooms and to bring in new teachers of different generations and different experiences, but always with rich contributions.
Cool in the game. You always got something in the pot. You just dropped 2 articles last week. Telling people about that before we tap out.
Yes.
Good feedback.
This is co-authored, unless you took your name off of them. So Inquest has published several articles, but the last two were on Atlanta, Cop City. We looked at it through the perspective of colonizing cities. The first one was called The Rubiks of Cop City, and the second one was Urban Warfare and Corporate Funded Armies. And the second one is the most hard hitting, meaning you just like here, we open the door, everything is on the table. I don't know how those two metaphors work together. But anyway, being clear about the violence. And that's why I was also asking Professor West about the fear. Because when I'm in conversations with different people, they can see the material reality, but they don't want to talk about it because it is, quote, frightening. But as we organize, the United Front Against Fascism, and we continue to grow it, then, you meet the opposition where the opposition is, and we meet our own fears with our own self-love and our own capacity to strategize. So some of the strategies are actually laid out in those two publications. They may not be clearly evident, but they reflect the reality that we're not frozen in time and we're not afraid of these predators.
Hey, we appreciate it. So the folks in the chat, thank you for reading. We're looking forward to putting out more information, period. We're grateful here at Black Power Media. We're grateful for the organizations who work.
Are you frozen? No, I think you're frozen. Okay.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Cool in the gang. Well, just in time, I get froze right before it's time to tap out. Black August Resistance. Next week we kick off Black August. Number of different events, functions, programs going on. Be sure to stay tuned to Black Power Media. We have a number of things going on live here in Atlanta. A few different pieces for the entire month of Black August. Salute to all the folks who are fighting for resistance. Rochelle McGee, we're happy to report. Has he been totally released just yet, or what?
I am not certain, but I know he seemed like he did want it a bit quiet until he's actually out. But the good news is out, and so that's good. And many people contributed over years and decades, and Rochelle led that. Also, maybe we could invite Claude Marks from Freedom Archives and other people when it's a good time and when they're ready and when McGee is ready to have more in-depth conversations.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, I've been away from the phone and the internet for a few days, so I didn't know if I missed anything. But just in time for Black August, Rochelle McGee, we understand he'll be coming home on a compassionate release next week. I want to remind folks as well, we will be broadcasting the memorial services for Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who just became an ancestor. Check us out right here on Black Power Media, 11 a.m. on August 6th. 11 a.m. August 6th, we will be broadcasting our beloved Dr. Mutulu Shakur, his memorial services right here on Black Power Media. Stay tuned. You should see Dr. Joy James, Jared Ball, and I this Monday for Guerrilla Intellectual University. And, stay on point. Keep winning. We will win in spite of ourselves. Have a good one, Dr. James.
Sarah, stay well, family.
Yes, salute, good people.